get a makeover. And while the field scrambled to adapt to the changes, it also grew immensely in size. With a full season under their belts, our drivers no longer have many excuses in learning the new ways of this old classic. And now that they kick off 2022 with an often racetrack as well, will some familiar faces return to the top? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch round 1 of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Samuel Ryman. Behind the scenes is our director, Robert O'Brien, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Spa is often cited as a fan and driver favorite. Let's head to our track guide to find out why it's so well loved. Welcome to Spa-Francorchamps. Less than an hour's drive east from the German border, this Belgian track has come to define racing for many different eras in the sport. It's no wonder it continues to entrance drivers when you look at the stats. The 7 kilometers over the course of a lap includes more than 330 feet in elevation change as it weaves its way through the Ardennes forest. Packed into this is 19 turns, some of which are considered among the most famous in the world of racing. Corners like La Source and Blanchemont have been on the lips of drivers for decades. But by far the most notorious is Eau Rouge and Rétillon. Typically referred to in name by just the first section, it dips low and swings left, then compresses and climbs to the right up a massive hill. The sequence ends with a completely blind crest that sweeps to the left and leads onto the incredibly long Kemmel Straight. The bravery required to be fast through there will pay off towards one of the most popular passing spots at Lacombe. Eau Rouge is exemplary of the rest of the circuit though. Most of the turns are incredibly fast and many include much of that signature elevation change. As jaw-dropping as the track is, you have to remember that this is the modern truncated layout. The old one, raced until 1979, was 14 kilometers in length, yet carried an average speed of 150 miles per hour. Present-day safety measures do cut down on the danger, but even in recent history, the circuit has proven deadly. It's clear why this track continues to be revered and respected by racers the world round. Well, Sam, we like seeing these cars at this old track, even if it's not the long spa that we used to see, but it's still going to be a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. This has always remained one of the most popular circuits on iRacing and also in the world, in the real world. I think globally a lot of people choose this as their favorite circuit better than all of them on this planet. But what's interesting about here for us today is there's really only one configuration of Spa, of course, but there's different pits that you can use, different starting lines that you can use on iRacing. And for this race, we're using the modern day Grand Prix configuration. And there you can see on our track guide there that the front straight is where they currently race with it in Formula One. So that means turn 1 for these drivers will be the La Source hairpin. And that could definitely pose some difficulties, especially with a 39-car single split. I think leaders will get away okay, but it could make things interesting in the middle of the field.
Yeah, absolutely, especially since last season saw a few messy starts early on. But before we get to that, we, of course, want to talk about the championship and how things wound up last season. And in the Formula One championship, they have sort of a pro and an am in this series. It was Topi Cortiniemi who came away with it over Ove Trangarade. In the end, it was Togo Hisada who was following up, and he was quick, especially by the end of the season. So I wonder if now that he might have more attendance consistently, if this could mean he could be a real challenger. Bill Tyler and John Olsen kind of hovered around for podiums, but they were never really seriously looking at wins most often. Still, they finished with the top 5. What about in the F2 championship here, Sam?
Yeah, David Rossi ended up taking home the F2 championship. There were several strong F2 contenders throughout the season, but Rossi seemed to have a leg up on them throughout the entire season. Nolan Smith is a very strong performer. He only just came in, I think, around halfway through the F2 season, so if he's back, and I'm taking a quick look down the entry list to see if I see him. And oh, yep, there he is, number 38 again, which is very bizarre how he still has such a low I rating. I would not write him off for the F2 Championship this year. Robin Brumer just edging Jorge Nieva there for third in the points, so congrats to him on getting the third spot on the roster there, and Michael Grissinger rounding out the top 5 of the F2 Championship when it was all said and done.
Now, they also have the Nations Cup, and it's very similar up at the very top with Finland and Norway getting the top 2 spots. But Japan didn't finish third like we saw with Hisada. It was the United States collecting that one with a few more drivers coming in to try and compete there. Not many drivers from Japan here on iRacing, but Togo represented well. And then the United Kingdom rounding out that 5th spot. Things getting pretty separated there around 4th and 5th. And for our new viewers, Sam, why don't you run down today's race details?
Yeah, well, this is an official iRacing series, so there's some things here that can't be changed. First off, it is week 1 of 12. Of course, iRacing's official series run for 12 weeks, and they throw 4 seasons into a calendar year. It's a 14-lap race, no time limit being an official series. They race until the 14 laps are complete. Open setup, because it's one of our higher class series races, so you can't compete in this series with a rookie license or a lower class license. No spare car either. If you break it, you bought it, and there's going to be a few drivers who are going to end up breaking it, unfortunately, today. Just the nature of this track and this car, and the fact that we have a 39 car field.
Indeed, and well, it takes so long to get around this place that we're only just starting the first flyer for many of our drivers. At the top of that, looks like Yaunzi Lin is currently leading the way, going to be the first one to try and set a time. And rated number 1. Now, this is not a familiar face to me, and we did hear from an old favorite here in this series, Mick Claridge, that there are a lot of new names that have shown up. So we'll keep an eye out and see what sort of new faces have been drawn to this very fun, although very tricky car. And I guess the good news for them is that it's actually pretty cool here in the morning just before 10 a.m. Virtual Standard Time in Belgium. So they will have to get the tires up, Sam, but it won't be overheating them too easily.
Yeah, and it looks like iRacing has thrown all of these drivers into an American-based server, which is not good for the many international drivers we have. I'm seeing a lot of high pins out there, so hopefully we don't see too much netcode on the opening lap. So drivers working their way through the Stavolo-Blanchimont section to finish up their first of 2 time laps for any drivers who have picked up an incident point. I see one next to Xavier Sanchez's name. That might discredit their first lap. Topi Kortanemi here, obviously very strong performer last season, win the championship and all that. He's got the number 2 on his car. You mentioned Yancey Lin. Not a familiar name. He has the number 1. Topi Kortanemi is the number 2 for this race. Xavier Sanchez is the number 3. John Olsen, the number 4. Kane Lasky, not too familiar with that name, in the number 5 as we get the first times in. And Topi Kortanemi to the top by almost a second right now, but obviously a lot of drivers have yet to put a lap in.
Olsen in second, but as you said, it's a pretty big gap right now. Roman Pavlowski comes in, and Sebastian Tixier and Togo Hisada is the first one able to topple Kortaniemi as he goes to the top spot. Tixier gets bumped to the second row with that one. And with Lin, we keep mentioning that new name, and the number 1 on it doesn't seem too fast on his first lap. It's always better not to make assumptions. He's not actually from the international club, as I first assumed, since you mentioned it, Sam. He's hailing from Club Michigan. So Lin, one of the American drivers, at least he's got that going for him as we continue to watch Hisada down the Kemmel Straight and into Lacombe for the second time. He's got one on the board. Should he now push and try and dare get a little closer to those edges, since you mentioned the incidents that come into play around here?
Yeah, I think if you get a decent first lap in, you might as well push it a little bit harder for your second lap. And we've actually, a surprising amount of cars have gone ahead and set a time. We're not seeing that many drivers elect to just sit in the pits and try and play the long game here, as looks like Quesada pulled to a stop there. So he must have made a mistake that he wasn't too pleased with. And that's unfortunate for him because, of course, it's a very large grid here and only a couple of tries to try and get a good time in to try and pull yourself ahead of the field. We're riding on board Topi Kortenemi here, who's coming around to complete his time. Yangtze Lin also coming around to complete his time. Remember the numbers here, because it's an unofficial iRacing series, are based off of iRating, so the drivers who have a lower number are expected to finish up front, even if they don't qualify too well. Normally, sometimes you see they have those higher iRatings, not necessarily because of how well they qualify, but normally they tend to have good racecraft and to find their ways up towards the front by the end of the race. So here we go, second round, the lap time starting to come in.
And Kortenemi goes ahead of Quesada. With Togo having that mistake, he had a little bobble coming out of Rivage. He's not able to respond. Ove Trangrade, his second lap, good enough for third place, it appears. What about Tixier? He was in third earlier. He goes quicker, only good enough for fourth, though. Yeva, who was looking very good in the F2 championship, looks like he's going to be very good here today as well. He puts that number 24 car in seventh place.
Nicely done by Jorge Nieva there. So Kane Lasky, though, bumps his way up into fourth on the grid at 2:18.7. You can see on the timing and scoring on the left-hand side of your screen there's a massive spread over the field, and that's an indication of how difficult this track is and how difficult this car is. I think about 31 of our 39 cars put on the lap.
Yep, we ran out of time. Unfortunately, it is just that long around here. So let's go through the starting grid with Topi Kortenemi on the pole. Togo Quesada starting in second. It's Ove Trangrade P3, followed by Kane Lasky in fourth. Tixier, good enough for fifth, as John Olsen is on the outside of that third row. Nieva, as we mentioned, seventh. Roman Pawlowski P8, and Lin starts ninth, with Tyler rounding out your top 10.
Starting in 11th place will be Xavier Sanchez ahead of Chris Murakami. Rob Schwindels will be starting 13th ahead of the 38 of Nolan Smith. Watch out for him. Hane Lehman will be starting 15th ahead of Robert Plumley. And then we got Lars Dolson and Michael Grissinger on row number 9. Matthew Moldsey and David Prelert will round out the top 20.
21st to Randy Huff with Cohen in 22nd. Then it's Billy Bob Wright, P23. You've got Colton Conover in 24th, followed by Gary Ho. Then it's Eugenio Massa to his outside. Andre Bruno starts 27th, Eng 28th, and Wallbank 29th, with some of the last drivers, Cortinez, starting 30th here.
Yeah, and there you see Drew Smith, the last driver to set a time. The other 8 names on the screen there did not. And Nolan Smith, the number 38 that I was kind of hoping we'd see contend for the F2 championship. Looks like he's having connection difficulties. We were talking about these higher pin readings for some of these drivers who are not based in the Americas, and hopefully he'll be able to get back into the session before too long here.
So some new faces and some faces that are returning, as it looks like we just have a couple drivers that need to make their way to the grid. And then we'll start racing here for 14 laps around Spa-Francorchamps, the opening round of 2022. I know technically it is still 2021, but this is when the season starts here on iRacing, here in the middle of December. And it looks like the clock has run out. So the engines now start to rev as the lights come up, and the green flag is out. It is a very good start for Kortenemi. Not so for Quesada. He gets swamped by multiple cars going to his inside, down into La Source. Will we get a clean run through this hairpin? Almost 4 wide in some cases. So far, so good. And it looks like we are at least mainly through with most of the field.
Yeah, we did have one car spinning in the midfield there right off a line, which collected a couple of cars, but for the leaders at least everything was clean. They all got through La Source okay, they're all getting through Eau Rouge and Raidillon without too many difficulties, but now the massive run down here, down the Kemmel straight into Les Combes, and this is where the draft will play effect, and we may have some 2, maybe even 3 wide action. Going through the chicane and rear-ended is Hane Lehman. We've got 2 or 3 cars going off at Les Combes there.
Oof. Yeah, unfortunately. And it looks like Robert Plumley is one of those. I think Jack Matheson, perhaps, trying to make them all out. You see Plumley there trying to make his way back to the track and within shot of our cameras as well. And eventually he trickles in, but the damage is done. Courteniemi is still your leader. Trangrade second, Lasky in third. Now, Kane Lasky, if you're new to this series, is probably going to seem like a new face, but that is a name we have not seen in quite some time, and he is just as fast as I remembered.
So the driver spinning right off of a line, it was unaided. He simply got too much wheel spin, was Michael Grissinger, and he started in 18th place. Grissinger in the pits right now with a lot of damage. So a few spills on the opening lap here, but at least up front things are looking rather clean with Courteniemi leading the way.
See if we can get a replay of those a little bit later. Let's get through this first lap coming around at Estavilo as Lasky continues to chase P1 and P2. Courteniemi and Trangrade are actually relatively close on track as we get a little side-by-side action back here.
Yeah, this is around about 10th place. Bill Tyler holding off for this pack of cars as they work their way through Blanchimont, and now they come into the bus stop, and of course everyone's going to have a different braking point here, so hopefully they don't rear-end each other too much. No contact this time around, but some more side-by-side action going through the tight chicane, which is always a bit of a hold-your-breath moment, but they all made it through, and we complete lap 1.
Interestingly, no David Rossi here today, but Nieva is picking up that torch as we see that 24 car go around the outside of Lynn. Those two fighting hard. He's going to be able to overtake the number 1 rated car in this field and get himself back up into 9th, although he is still 2 spots down from where he began this race. So a net loss, but based on his iRating number, he's still in a very good spot right now.
Yeah, we're not missing anything up front. The 2 leaders are nose to tail, but no move attempts being made by Ove Trantre. And it's interesting that despite, as we get a car locking up, running off there, that's the number 8 car of Murakami. So he's going to lose a couple of positions. But it's interesting that once again, it looks like 2022 will deliver more of a Courteniemi Trantre battle for us.
Ooh, and Kane Lasky just lost out to Tixier. Was that down through Rivage? Yeah, looks like Sebastian just mugged him into the corner. Not really much fight out of Kane Lasky on that one. So the number 5 now falls down to 4th position as they fly through Pujon. They've still got a little bit of a gap to those behind him, which is John Olsen. And unfortunately, the struggling Togo Hisada from the front row down to 6th here at the start of this race.
Yeah, early stages though, that second pack is still very tightly contested, so 3rd through 7th is definitely still all to play for, especially as early on in the race as is right now, but the top 2 have definitely broken away by a couple of seconds, but we've seen through all the drama in this series in the past that a couple of seconds doesn't necessarily mean that the guys behind are guaranteed to catch you, and look at that slipstream, or, well, oh boy, that's oversteer.
That was a touch of the grass, I think it looked like. He appeared to go very far to the right. Great catch, though, from Hisada at, what was that, about 130, 140 miles an hour. He was drifting it through the corner, and he's going to pull off to the side. It looks like he maybe got a slowdown penalty off of that.
Yeah, still in that pack though. Again, this is 3rd back through 7th. They're about 2-3 seconds back of the leaders, and
problem for Lynn as well. Looks like he got overtaken. Just had to let Sanchez by. He got a better run into La Source. You can see him try to chase on Sanchez as they now head through Eau Rouge. Fearsome in this car, though it requires a lot more lifting and braking than modern F1. Both of them successfully over the crest. As ahead of them, Hisada is having to fend off Roman Pawlowski even now. So 6th place might be up for grabs.
I think just switched hands because Pawlowski had it at the line, and now Hisada has it on the track, so he was able to make that pass work down the Kemmel Straight. These two can't battle too much, though, because I talked about how 3rd through 7th were all tightly packed together. You can see they're starting to spread out now. This is position 6 and 7, and 3, 4, 5 are pulling it away from them a little bit.
Down into the left-hander of Puhan. Tries to see if he can catch back up and get that spot back. But you're right, Olsen ahead of them has pulled away. Kane Lasky is still out of reach amongst them. Back and forth through Fanyes. But the good news for Pawlowski, Bill Tyler behind by about 3 seconds currently. A bit of a battle behind them. Nieva and Sanchez fighting. Xavier has got some pace here today, and he's trying to use it to the best he can, side by side through Stavolo. This one is tricky in this car. It's going to slow them down greatly, which is a huge boon for Lynn. And now he's got a double punch in the air from the two cars, still going side by side, and they finally get single file.
Yeah, so this is all for around 10th place, and of course they're about to come up to a bunch of passing opportunities here, the first of which obviously is the bus stop, but then we got La Source and the Kemmel Straight after that. They all get single file for now.
Big wobble there from the 3 car, but I think he's got a hold of it. Compromises the exit of Nieva, and here comes Lin back at him as Yaon Z looks up the inside.
We got big trouble exiting the chicane. Behind them, around 15th place, Dave Cohen, a couple other drivers have got together. I think this has involved 3 cars. We had a nice little pack of cars battling for 15th place, but a couple cars locked up going into the bus stop, and it all got a bit ugly, and unfortunately a couple of cars might have to tow because of all this.
A big lockup here for Cohen, and you can see it oversteers, and yeah, a lot of people unfortunately unable to avoid. Maudsley gets the worst of it as Cohen gets plowed up into the air.
Yeah, I was keeping an eye on that battle. We obviously had the nice battle for 10th place that we were watching, but this one for 15th or so was brewing as well, and unfortunately the kettle just boiled, and things got a little bit too hot there.
Well, up at the front, we still have no change. It is still Courtaniemi and Trangrade split by about half a second. They have continued to drop those behind. It's 2 seconds down to Tixier in 3rd place, and they come up to Fanyes once again. So it's starting to become, it's starting to look like we've got Topi and Ove as our main protagonists in this series. They really became that way last season. But are they our new Mick and, well, now the Frenchman's name is escaping me, and I feel extremely embarrassed about how many years I've covered this, Sam.
That's all right, but we're watching these guys work their way through the last section of the track now, and my initial inclination is to agree with you, Joe. Even though these aren't necessarily the number 1 and 2 rated drivers in the series, they have the I ratings with Topi Courtaniemi having the number 2 on his car and Ove Trantre having the number 10 on his car. They're obviously the 2 with the most experience recently, at least when it comes to running up front in this series. But will be interesting to see if that changes as the season goes on. You know, will we see the likes of Yunxi Lin and Kane Lasky, who might not always be names that we're too familiar with running up front in this car? Can they gain the experience needed to challenge these 2?
I knew McClaren would come to my rescue. It's Michel, is the Frenchman that we saw always challenging him. But Hisada right now, the Japanese driver, trying on the American as he's got a great run up and over the crest of Radion. And Olsen does not defend to the inside. He allows that door to stay open for Hisada. He steps through, but he comes in very hot. He manages to get it woed up. Togo finally back up to 5th. You said there's a lot of racing to go. It's already lap 5 out of 14, though, and he's only got 1 spot.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about the circuit is there's so many passing zones that, you know, even if you're within contact of a car in front of you in the closing laps, you probably only need a couple of laps to, you know, try and attempt to move and find a passing opportunity. It's a nice little scrap we have going on screen here. Interestingly, all the drivers who started in the top 10, 11 are still racing up there. It's really about 13th on back where we start to see the big movers. Randy Huff from 21st on the grid is running 13th.
And Nieva still giving chase. We're looking at Huff now here, and the 29 car sitting in 13th, so nice little gain for him. Seeing if he could get out to Nieva, who was in that little fight that we saw before. Nieva unfortunately not able to come out ahead of Sanchez, but Huff heading into Stavolo now. And was watching. Oh, and Chris Murakami is going to lose a couple places here into the first corner of Stavolo, and he's got a friend off too. Laust Olsen, was there some contact here? It looks like there might be, based on what we're seeing here in the replay. And doink. There it is.
Yeah, these cars don't deal with car-to-car contact too well. Another driver we lost this lap was David Prayler. He got it all wrong in Lacombe, had a single car incident, and so he's had to tow from the pits. He had been running in the top 20. I'll tell you what, Ove Trantre is right on the gearbox of Cortinemi. I wonder if he's about to try and attempt to pass for the lead here as they go down the Camel Straight.
Ooh, I think you could be right. He's sizing him up. And Cortinemi goes defensive. He doesn't feel completely safe here. The number 2 car is going to have to break deep down into Lacombe, and he does. Trangrade still not able to get it done. But now we're seeing him attack as he had enough of riding behind.
Yeah, I was glad to see that neither of them got a slowdown penalty there. They were right on the edge of riding over that curb, going through the Eau Rouge Raidalon complex, and you know, if you do take too much of that curb on the left-hand side, use too much of that runoff area, you can get a slowdown penalty, and there's a very realistic chance. Oh, we got a spinner from, is that Pawlowski?
And that is coming out of No Name, and there was no contact either. It was behind John Olsen. Thankfully didn't hit anything. Great save, actually. If we want to get a replay, if you look from above, he had maybe about a foot to spare before he ran into the tires.
Yeah, and didn't lose any position through this. Was running in 7th place when it happened. We'll get a slow motion action replay here, but happened from 7th, resumed in 7th.
Rally style here for the 13, throwing up some smoke, just keeps it out of there in time. Wonder if he kept his foot in it the whole time. And off he goes. Fantastic stuff. Meanwhile, have not seen a change for the lead, although they are still close, and you can see just how close they are. If they keep this up, Tixier is still within about 1.7 seconds. Too much squabbling could make this a 3-car fight.
I was just looking through the rest of the top 10, top 15. Don't have anyone on top of each other right now, but we do still have a few close battles as they approach the halfway point here.
Let's see if we can get another good run out of the Norwegian. Both of them well within the bounds this time. And coming along the Kemmel Straight doesn't look as close. And is there a problem with Ferrer?
Yeah, so let's go back to Paul Ferrer, because he had been having a nice little run. He'd worked his way up into 16th place from 34th. He just had a single car spin, the number 26 car of Paul Ferrer, down in the bus stop. Single car spin, didn't hit anything. But the problem was, Joe, is after his spin, he was parked right in the racing line in the middle of the bus stop, and a few drivers had to work their ways around him.
Oh, yeah, he wanted to get going. Great heads up by everybody involved, thankfully. And now he is rolling. So, back on his way. Oh, and he just had a very close moment just now. Andre Bruno spun in front of him over the top of Radillon. It has been a hairy couple corners for the number 26 car.
And still up, though, from where he started. Was one of the drivers who didn't set time during qualifying, so has had his work cut out for him. But yeah, he was quite close to 25 there, and that was very nicely done.
Wow, and he chose the long way around. That was extremely lucky. You send this car in a trajectory, it tends to keep going. I can't believe he managed to keep it from just veering off into the tire barrier when he chose that direction to try and take avoiding action. Back up to Hisada in the meantime, still in 5th place, but now he's looking at 4th, and it looks like Lasky just let him by almost.
Yeah, that could have been a strategic play. I wasn't watching their lines through the previous couple of corners. Could have also been a slowdown penalty, but my guess is it's more likely a strategic play. There's still a long ways to go in this race as they hit the halfway point.
If I could be allowed a moment of bias, the 23rd place car is Don Peak, up from 35th on the grid, and he's actually getting close to Cortinez here in 22nd place. Just about a second between the pair of them as we hop on board with him.
Oh, we're riding on board. Is this the new GSRC logos on this car, Joe?
I think this is still the custom paint, but yes, I'm glad you brought that up because now you can, if you don't want to make a custom paint with trading paints, you can actually choose the GSRC logo on iRacing itself. So glad to see Don representing, and he's going to go for the move from a long way back. Barely keeps it from getting into the side from Alvaro, but he's going to out-accelerate him off the corner, and Cortinez is just going to let him through. That is P22 now for the Hoosier.
One of our...
And sounds like we had a problem from Matheson behind them. Is this into the bus stop, I think? Out of the bus stop, it looks like. Car so bright, unfortunately distracted even himself as he spins it around. As we come back to the top spots, and looks like Hisada is now trying to see if he can catch up to Tixier. He's ahead of Lasky, but it's about 2 seconds to catch the next car. Let's see, what does his pace look like compared to Sebastian? Quickest for Hisada, 2:18.4. Tixier, 2:18.4. So relatively close on pace, it appears. Last time through, though, much quicker for Togo that time.
Yeah, a lot of these gaps between the packs throughout the top 10 are staying fairly consistent. This is why those opening laps, if you do want to race up front, are so critical to, to try and get yourself in position and stay with the packs towards the front. New fastest lap there for Ove Chandray, who's done his job so far very well. He's still in 2nd place.
Watch the number 5 car, at least staying with him relatively closely. Haven't seen too many drivers swapping around with these top spots, but here and there have been some changes as we watch our leaders once again within 0.3 of a second.
And contact from 14th to 15th. Bill Wright, Chris Murakami, and Lars Dolson getting into each other's gearboxes going through the chicane. They were also tightly packed together, but they all continue. And now Bill is going to go wide there and let the other two by. Yeah, but watch this. This was actually quite hard contact going through the chicane, but fortunately it was square enough that they all kept pointing in the right direction.
Ooh, yeah, just didn't anticipate the pace there of a man affectionately known in the Lotus 49 community as Billy Bob Wright. And he still sits in 16th, not doing too bad. Glad to see him back and rolling. As we take a look at the 10 car of Trangrade, and he's even closer once again, now through Puhan. So this isn't usually a place where drivers are able to pass, but that's a good sign if he's this close in the twisty bits.
You can see Topi's doing all that he can, kicking up a bit of gravel there. Oh, lap traffic ahead. Shouldn't be too much of a concern at this track. These the leaders especially are used to dealing with lap traffic in this series. These fields are normally about 30 or 40 cars, so it's something that normally comes to plays a role in the race eventually, and you can see the lap car just pulling out to the side there. Not the best way to do it, but gets the job done, and Cortinemi and Chandray continue on down the straight. As they come into the chicane, they'll cross the line and have 5 laps to go.
And that was actually Robert Reynolds who was letting them by, and he's a very experienced driver here in this series, so he knows how to let them lap. In fact, so much so, he's accepted the nickname from the group Back Row Bob.
Yeah, I'm still not sure that slowing down on the racing line for a high-speed corner such as that was the greatest move, but it got them. It all worked out.
Yep, everybody's still racing, thankfully. And up and over the crest, very close for Ove Trangerade. He's going to feel some of that slipstream. Is it enough? It doesn't appear to be, as they get all the way up to about 185 miles an hour before they hit the brakes here at the end of the Kemmel Straight. And no attack this time from Trangerade. Well past the halfway mark, but look at how close he's able to get down through the corners. Does seem like that car is very planted in the turns.
Yes, so there's this battle. There's also the battle still for 8th, 9th and 10th between Bill Tyler, Zabia Sanchez and Jorge Nieva that I'm keeping an eye on. Those 3 are all still nose to tail working their way through Les Combes right now, but they're all holding stations, so we'll keep with these leaders here as they work their way into Pujon. I do wonder how much of this is just Ove biding his time right now. I'm sure if it was a final lap, say, we would have seen him attempt to dive to the inside there.
Yeah, decided not to go for it into Fany's quite yet, but look at how tight to the gearbox of the number 2 he's been getting on this lap. He's been hovering about 2 to 1/10 behind Topi Cortiniemi, and coming now on to the backstretch towards Blanchimont. He loses a little bit there. That's not good. He wants to be closer than this. Can he maybe get a better run through the swift left-hander of Blanchimont down towards the bus stop chicane? And it doesn't appear to be the case.
Alright, I'm going to start getting curious about the 3rd position now. Sebastian Tixier still holds it, he has for most of the race, but Togo Hazada is now right behind him, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see Hazada attempt to move for 3rd place going into Les Combes, because he's been able to run down Tixier, and if he thinks he's faster, he might want to take that 3rd place now and try and pull away from Tixier, so that if the top 2 do tangle, he's in the popcorn position.
Exactly. It's, though, a question, I'm sure, of what could have been for Hazada. We watch the top 2, and that was not a good run for Cortiniemi as Trangerade is closing up, and they've got lap traffic off to the side. That's Bruno, who thankfully gives both of them space, but Trangerade seems a little bit timid with that 3 wide. He gets another little duck of slipstream, and it's not enough. He'll have to stay behind, but the battle is getting yet more intense for the lead.
Yeah, very disappointed that Bruno didn't take the Ricardos onto line, but that's all right. We've still got a few more laps left to see how this all plays out. Tixier held on to 3rd place as well. He was able to break the draft from Hazada.
Yeah, Conover trying to pull out of the way as well and let them through. They're getting a lot of traffic, but the good news is the next one up is Gary Anderson, who's, about maybe a third of the lap away from them. So they got some time before they hit any more. Hopefully, this has stretched them out at least a little bit more to the wide gap of 0.3 of a second. Now, Ove Trangerade still is definitely not out of this.
Yeah, everyone's being smart about it. We're riding on board Hazada here because obviously we're keeping half an eye on this battle too. And you can see, just like Trancheré, he's in striking range, but even though there's still 3.5 laps to go, 3 laps to go when they cross the line, that's a lot of racing around this large circuit, and so it's still too early to do anything too ambitious.
Well, speaking of ambitious, Hisada starting to look around the outside, but a defense from Tixier just makes him decide not to. Pulls back in. Now they head through Blanchimont. No gains from the Japanese driver there. As he comes up to the braking, nothing doing. Still some defensive maneuvers from Tixier. And this is actually allowing Kane Lasky to catch back up a little bit, although he gets a big bit of wheel spin coming off the bus stop and, well, throws away all the time that he gains.
Yeah, so this is a battle for 8th through 10th and very late on the brakes. There's Sanderson into the side of Bill Tyler. And so a couple of cars coming to blows there for top 10 positions. And with all the experience of Sanchez there, maybe he thought Bill Tyler would give him a bit more room, but these are two experienced drivers, and this seems a very avoidable calamity. Oh, it was an ambitious pass by Sanchez, unless he was just late on the brakes.
I don't know if it was that the Duracell car was energized by how close he was, or if he just he braked too late accidentally. I think he knew that he was not going to make the corner because he was trying to get it steered to the inside there. And Nieva, my goodness, we definitely need a real quick onboard from him sneaking to the inside. There he flashes through. It was just cat-like reflexes from Jorge to avoid this accident.
Yes, this was the battle for 8th, 9th and 10th. Obviously, it's not anymore. Nieva is going to inherit that 8th position as we ride on board him one more time in the replay. A shout out also to the two drivers ahead of all this going on. John Olsen and Pawlowski, those two are racing 6th and 7th. But as we come back to resume live action with just a couple of laps left to go when they cross the line, I'm not sure how much we'll be watching these battles around 10th anymore, because things up front are going to get very interesting in these closing miles.
It's going to be 2 to go at the line for our leaders as you see them fly out of Stavelot down towards Blanchimont, up to 6.5 seconds ahead of Tixier. They have certainly left him in the dust. And it's going to be a battle for best of the rest, it appears, for them. Both of them taking quite a bit of curb on the exit of Blanchimont, braking hard down into the final chicane, but no attack from Trangrade. He's just not close enough this time.
Yeah, so now's where Trandray's, well, he's probably already decided what his move is going to be, and Toby Cortinemi, despite having to worry about the car behind him the whole time, still sets the fastest lap of the race at 2 minute 18.1 there. So Trandray is looking aggressive here. I was going to say that I assumed he'd probably already picked out his move. Looks like he's going to go with it right now. He's not going to wait until the last time of asking. He's going to try and make the move down the back straight, and Toby Cortinemi makes it very evident that he's going to stay to the inside, and if Trandray's late enough on the brakes, he might be able to win this battle coming out of Lake On.
It's a hard game of chicken between the pair of them, but Trangray's got a nose ahead in the second part. Can he accelerate away? Can he shut the door? Not quite, but he is better out of Malmedy, and finally, he is in the lead. Cortiniemi was denied this time, but he has a lap and a half to go to get it back. As that happened, Lynn had an accident. I think it was in the bus stop. No, it was out of Blanchimont. He spun on his own, it appears. I think we're going to go replay.
You do have to lift in this car going through these corners, and so he got a bit of gas on the entry of the main Blanchimont corner. Fortunately, no contact though, but as you mentioned, that costs him a couple of positions. So nicely done by Trantre. He's our new race leader. So the leaders are now coming around to start the final lap. But of course, now we get to see what Cortinemi can do.
Yeah, we've seen him in the defensive position so far, not the offensive position. Can he attack? Does he have the straight line speed to get this one back? This is really going to be our first indication here as they start to pick up the pace on the way down towards the final chicane. They go by another lapped car with Gary Anderson staying off to the side for them. It doesn't look like the Finn is gaining right now. Oh, and he gets a lot of grass on the way into the corner.
Yeah, hopefully shouldn't be too many lap cars playing interference here on the final lap. Kind of nice when they all get waved around uncontroversially, and we won't get into that. All right, here we go. The final lap of a race. Ove Trantre has the top position as they work into La Source, and Topi Cortinemi is behind him in second place. Now, obviously, the first passing opportunity is going to be the one that Trantre made work, but Topi is a little bit far back. Unless he gets a really nice run out of Rodillion here, and he does. Oh, a bit too much turbo there. Hopefully, it's not a slowdown.
Doesn't look like he's slowing down at this stage. As he stays within the slipstream, Trangrade starts to weave to try and break it. He's gaining. It doesn't look like it's enough, and it's not going to be this time. Just a couple more corners that really offer good opportunities, and Trangrade's going to have to be picture perfect to not allow an opportunity to open up for the number 2.
Tixier still holds on to third place, but that battle is also up for grabs, and a big mistake for Trantre. You say he needs to be picture perfect. Well, that definitely wasn't picture perfect. A big slide there, but Topi Cortinemi couldn't do anything about it because Trantre was still parked right down the racing line. Now, my guess at this point is that Topi might wait until they're going through Blanchimont and try and attempt something down into the bus stop. If a door doesn't present itself open before then, you can sometimes get away with looking on the inside down Fagnes here, but a bit too far back. He's not going to make that work.
Slows up into the right-left. Still within about 0.3 of a second on his rival. He could steal this back. Another mistake out of Trangrade as he gets wheel spin from the chicane. If he doesn't get a good exit out of Stavolo, that'll really open the door for the number 2 car. Both of them focusing on putting that throttle down smoothly, and Topi is there. He's going to have the slipstream. Will he outbrake him? Will he have the guts to do so? Down into the bus stop chicane, up to Blanchimont. Both of them have got to nail it through this corner, and it looks like Trangrade's just mildly better, but he's not able to stretch away. Cortinemi is there. No defense from Trangrade, but minor defense as he keeps it halfway across the course. A little bit of wheel spin from Cortinemi. He tries to cut back across. It is not there, and Trangrade will successfully defend for the win here in round 1.
I was a little worried there as Tixier will get third place, is pulled away from Hazard on the final lap. I was a little worried that Cortinemi had actually got a slowdown penalty going through Blanchimont the way he was wide on the exit, but he didn't really ever back off. Trantre gave him enough room on the inside there, but I think he knew he had Topi Cortinemi quite well covered. 0.2 of a second distance at the line, and Trantre takes the spoils for the first of 12 rounds of the season as we continue to watch a couple of nice little battles come into the line here.
Swindell's having to play big defense on Tyler, who just can't get it. Also, Randy Huff behind them, qualified in 21st. He finishes 11th. Great game. And he's rated 29th out there. So iRating is going to be flowing his way today. And behind them, looking to see if we got any other close battles. Looks like a lot of drivers separating out.
Well,
I mentioned it
we got one. We got Robert Plumley. I think he's in 22nd position now. I think something's happened to Alvaro Cortines on the final lap. Yeah, so Robert Plumley's gone from 23rd to 22nd, but I bring this up, Joe, because of the car behind him.
I was just about to say, Don Peak has made a good gain himself today from 35th to 23rd here as the number 30 car brings it into the last chicane. He's got about an 8-second gap. He still outbrakes himself a little bit into the last corner. He's not going to lose a spot because of that one. Glad to see Don having a good race day here today. And only 26 cars are going to finish on the lead lap out there, with Drew Smith maybe the last one of our 38 runners here. So that's going to take us to a quick break. We'll come back with the official results as well as driver interviews. So stick around. Welcome back to Spa-Francorchamps. We just watched the first round of the season here for the Grand Prix Legends. And in the ongoing battle between Ove Trangrade and Topi Korteniemi, it of course wound up in Trangrade's favor. Topi only 0.194 of a second behind at the end. Sebastian Tixier trundling home in third. He did have some challenge behind him for at least the latter half of the race. Togo Hazada ran him down but couldn't stick with him. Togo slipping from second on the grid down to fourth in the end. He's got to be kicking himself a little bit. Kane Lasky returns to get a nice fourth place as John Olsen finished in sixth and Roman Pavlowski finished in seventh. Then it's Jorge Nieva who finished in eighth. Again, a great iRating gain for him from 24th or number 24 car. And Rob Swindells was ninth behind him. Bill Tyler rounded out the top 10.
Yeah, another big gainer was the 29 car, who started 21st, finished 11th as Randy Hoff, ahead of the number 1 car of Youngsi Lin, who comes home in 12th position. Murakami finishes 13th place ahead of Lars Olsen, and then the driver we didn't really mention at all today, Marco Antonio Lopez Salgado, and it's not that we didn't feel like pronouncing that name, but he just started 33rd and worked his way up to 15th quietly throughout the race, so kudos to Marco there. Paul Ferrer finishes in 16th place despite a spin in the middle of the race ahead of Gary Ho, and Billy Bob Wright comes home in 18th ahead of Rowley Wallbank. Andrew Eng rounds out the top 20.
21st went to Eugenio Massa with Robert Plumley in 22nd position. Then it was Don Peake going from 35th without a qualifying time to 23rd today. Jack Matheson was 24th. Cortinez, P25. Last driver on the lead lap was Drew Smith. Then we had Gary Anderson at 27th. Xavier Sanchez not having the day he wanted, winding up 28th. Robert Reynolds in at 29th and Andre Bruno 30th, 2 laps down. From there, it is drivers who unfortunately did not have good days today. But that does take us to our second place finisher, Topi Korteniemi, who started on the pole, but eventually saw that slip into the hands of Ove Trangrade. Topi, it came down to a fight at the very end, and it seems you couldn't hold off or fight back on Ove. Were you a bit surprised that he was able to get by you, or did you kind of expect that?
Well, it was going to happen sooner or later. I think Uwe was faster than me in Lecombe and Favanes. I was probably faster out of Los Osos and the chicane, but yeah, it was a good fight, and he got me sweating.
It seems like you two have really become the major players on this new car, on the new tire that they've introduced for it last season, but everybody's now had a chance to kind of acclimate themselves. What do you feel is the secret on this new tire? Is there anything special you feel like you're doing?
I don't know, just every time I'm trying to push for a faster lap time, it doesn't work, but just focusing on smoothness and racing line, and suddenly you've got lap time you never had before. It's a smoothness with the throttle, with the brake, coming off the brake, with the blips downshifting. I don't know. It's something just clicks.
Well, I mean, Jim Clark famously drove this car, and smoothness was really his thing, so it makes sense to me, the way he wielded it. Can you go back-to-back on the championships? Can you bring the fight back to Ove when we return next week in Suzuka?
Yeah, probably. It might be, of course, because it's the holidays that I missed the race, but we'll see.
Well, the good news is I can tell you the race that we're covering is going to be on Sunday and not on Christmas morning. But congratulations on the win. Is there anybody you want to thank?
I don't know. Uwe. Congrats to Uwe for the win. It was a good race. Good and fair. Even though I made a Verstappen dive into the last chicane.
It all worked out in the end, and that was Topi Korteniemi, who took second place today. And of course, next we've got Sebastian Tixier, who finished third, and Sam has caught up with him.
Yeah, Sebastian, a nice way to kick off the season here, and you had a nice little battle going on there with Togo Hisado in the closing laps.
Yeah, finally. after almost 4 years of Lotus, finally I got a podium. It was hard at the start. So I was P4 and I was not seeing Togo in my relatives. So and then I managed to pass P3 and I got some gap. And then suddenly I saw Togo in my relative just behind me, and I started to sweat and got a lot of pressure. But yeah, I managed to defend, and I know Togo is very clean driver, so yeah, I'm very happy.
Yeah, no, it was a very good battle we saw throughout the day, and like I said, it was very clean, so off to a good start for this season. What are your goals here then? You've got a podium out of the way. Are you thinking long term here? Are you thinking, do you have like a goal in a championship, or is your goal to try and win a race this season?
I guess my goal would be top 5 of the championships. I know some fast guy were missing today, so I don't have huge expectation, but I will do my best every race.
Well, that's definitely a good and fair goal to have, and probably an achievable one too. Next race, I believe, we go to Suzuka. What are your thoughts about that circuit?
Suzuka. It's going to be hard, but with the new tire model, I think the series of S's will be easier than the last time we went there. So I hope it will be fun. Nice floor on this track, and it's a hometown for Togo, so I guess it will be very fast there.
Yeah, it seemed like you were enjoying the new tyre model out there today, able to pull off a solid finish. Anyone you'd like to thank before we let you go?
Yes, I would like to thank my team, Premier Racing Team, and Racecraft Simulation, and Advanced Performance Machinery, and the broadcast of GSRC of course.
All right, well, we appreciate that. Thanks for coming to talk to us, Sebastian. Congrats on finally getting the monkey off your back and getting the podium finish here. Hopefully there's more to come.
Thank you very much.
Sebastian's been there and thereabouts. I didn't realize this is his first podium here on the broadcast, but that's going to be it for our interviews. Our winner there on the screen, Ove Traeger. Apologies, I think I called Topi the winner earlier, but is not going to join us. Hopefully we'll get to talk to him. Maybe we'll get a Norwegian translator one of these days. But we're going to, of course, close it out with a big thank you to the Lotus 49 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage. And thank you goes to the companies that provide the software and the hardware for our broadcasts that you see listed on your screen. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. Check out her Bandcamp for more great work. Thanks to the team today, Sam, Rob, and Dougie. You can find more info about GSRC at globalsimracingchannel.com or through our social media listed on the screen. Also, check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. We keep a link in the description below. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a moment, because next week it'll be at Suzuka. However, make sure and mark it down a little bit differently. It'll be Sunday, December 26th at the usual time of 8:30 a.m. Eastern. We don't want to have to make anybody race or broadcast on Christmas morning, so we're bumping it back one day. But we have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. And up next today, we have the Campbell GT Series at Detroit. That'll be at noon Eastern. Make sure and tune in for that, because that is going to be some big excitement. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.